5,000 complaints now to RTE regarding the New Year's Eve skit. Now, the latest update on this, I don't think it's fair, actually, to be quite honest with you, that Red Top, that the Mirror would say that it was a grovelling apology. I imagine he feels awful enough as it is. I'm referring, of course, to the former RTE news anchor, Angus McGreena, who apologised. Now, the Mirror called it a grovelling apology. I'm not so sure that that's necessary. He said, "Truly, I am deeply sorry for the offence, the distress and hurt caused by it. It was wrong for me and it was wrong of me." I mean, what more can the guy do? He must feel awful enough as it is. One could say, why do it in the first place? But for the grace of God, go all the rest of us. But he has apologised. I have huge amounts of texts and emails still on this. Many suggesting that the Catholic Church is a soft touch, of course, and they wouldn't do it to another faith. They wouldn't, for instance, do it were it a skit or a sketch on the Prophet Muhammad, or indeed the Muslim faith. But he's issued an apology, of that we know. Rachel, good morning.
Good morning, Neil. How are you?
When I last checked, it was nearly 5,000 people had actually made complaints to RTE in different fashions with regards to the New Year's Eve sketch. What would you make of that? 5,000 people plus complaining that they found it distasteful.
I think it's crazy that a lot of people spoke up about it. Not that it was 5,000 people that had an issue with it, but that it was 5,000 people that had the guts to say something about this, because I think, it's all good and grand to have a skit and try to raise spirits, especially after the year we've had, but they went about it completely wrong and they offended a lot of people.
Now, many people whose faith is important to them were offended, with God being arrested for, historic sexual offences, being arrested for rape, really, if you like. So that was their religious aspect of it where they were offended. But many people felt that it was actually laughing or parodying sexual assault and rape.
Yeah, absolutely. They seemed to I think they tried to make light of it, really. They didn't do a very good job. Like I said, they've offended a lot of people, me included. It brought up a lot of memories and a lot of feelings and pain. And I know I'm not the only one. You'd think that with where we are now and how far we've come, that people would take these things a bit more seriously.
When you say it brought up a lot, it triggered a lot with regards to your own sexual assault when you were a teenager, young girl.
Absolutely, yeah. I went through something awful at a young age, and honestly, I'm still dealing with it. I haven't completely dealt with it, so I'm still going through it. But I think, like I said, after the year we've had, everything COVID-wise, a lot of people's mental health were affected. People who may have had mental health issues in the past, or people who never suffered a day in their lives. Everyone was affected by the various lockdowns and restrictions. And I understand that they were trying to, lift spirits and whatnot, but they went about it a completely wrong way.
Well, some would say that it's comedy, and it was clearly maybe alternative comedy, but should not be taken seriously in the first place.
Yeah, I don't like some of their skit was funny, and I'm not going to say that it wasn't, but it was this particular part that was absolutely not funny. And I think that in order to be funny, you don't need to hurt others. You don't need to hurt specific groups or people. The people who have faith and in God and they're strong religion, or people who've been through things. You don't need to hurt them in order to be funny.
Yeah, Brenda Power in the Mail said that leaving aside the gratuitous attack on 85% of the population who identify as Christian, she says it was classic bullying as well. She also goes on to say that why don't they poke fun, or would they ever poke fun when the sketch on transgenderism as an example, or while you're at it, obesity or Black Lives Matters. Many people have said they daren't do it, say, for instance, to the Muslim faith, It just,
exactly.
It just seemed to be that the Catholic Church seemed to be a soft target, hit them when they're down, you know. Could I just ask you, you said, you know, you talk about what happened to you when you were very young. Did you think that you were over that? Was that buried away and it resurfaced because of the sketch? Or do you deal with it always?
For a long time I buried it, and I think it's only kind of in recent times that I'm coming to terms with it. But yeah, I mean, I am still dealing with it. And it did resurface a lot of things, and it affected me New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And like I said, I know I'm not the only one.
And I know you were saying in your conversation with the lads before coming on the air that you didn't do anything about it at the time because you didn't think anything would come of it. You know, was that you looking at it through the eyes of a 14-year-old? Do you still believe that now?
I do still believe it. I mean, a lot of these cases, it's kind of he said, she said, a type of situation.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's hard to I don't know, you know, gather evidence, pinpoint things after a certain time has passed, and it does become he said, she said situation.
I know. Did you seek help? Did you talk to anybody? Did you go for counselling, speak to a friend or anything?
I did. It took a while for me to speak up about it, but because of what happened, a lot of other mental health issues came to the surface, and I ended up being hospitalised for a while in 2014. So I am still dealing with everything, but you know, New Year's Eve isn't a time that you want to be watching TV with your family and see something like this on air.
No, because if you sat back and thought about it, whether it was the newsreader reading it or the person who made it, somebody should shout, hang on a second, this is in bad taste any time of the year. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand how nobody said, you know, we can't put this on the air. Not one person said it. They must have all said, yeah, let's go with it, this is funny.
Or to think that nobody would be offended, or, you know, like, again, I go back to Brenda Power's article. She says the people who have just discovered this article, the people who have just discovered this sketch have discovered exactly what the national broadcaster secretly thinks of them and their faith. But it's not just about faith. It's about people who have been subjected to all sorts of other aspects in their life, including sexual assault, rape, and a young girl who's been raped and has given birth to a child.
Exactly.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It is. You'd think we'd have come a lot further in 2020, 2021.
I know. And do you think that the apology is enough? I mean, the sketch is still on the RTE player. You were saying to the lads that there should be whoever's involved. What were you saying? That whoever was involved should be made to come out publicly, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think the apology that they put out is sufficient. I don't think it was heartfelt. I think it was something that they did because they were getting a few complaints. I don't think they actually meant it. If they had meant it, the skit would have been taken down right away. I don't think it was sufficient, and I think something else needs to be done. I think either the people who wrote it, the people who aired it, you know, the people who read the script, somebody needs to come out and issue a public apology.
Words as opposed to a statement.
Exactly.
Let's see what happens in the coming days, if anything happens at all. But listen, Happy New Year to you in spite of all of that, and look after yourself.
I will. Happy New Year to you too, Neil.
See you, Rachel. Bye.
Bye.
The Neil Prenderville Show on Cork's Red FM. Our phone lines remain open after midday. 1850 104 106.
Just a quick update. The Minister for Justice, Helen McEntee, has revealed that she has tested positive for COVID-19. She's expecting her first child, and she revealed that online there recently. She said just in the last 15 minutes, I was recently tested, have received a positive result in line with our HSC guidance. I am isolating now. I'm continuing to carry out my duties by working remotely, including attending Cabinet. So that's Helen McEntee, the Justice Minister, testing positive. Now, I just spoke there with Rachel, who herself was the victim of sexual assault when she was a young teenager, and it's triggered quite an amount of emotions, the sketch on New Year's Eve. So obviously it's hurtful to an awful lot of people. Mind you, somebody does suggest that I'm wrong when I talk about offending, RTE not wanting to offend other religions. Paddy says it was God who was arrested. It was God who is God to Hebrews, to Muslims and to Christians. So it offended a lot more than just, say, the Catholic faith here in Ireland. Angus McGrena has issued an apology. I'd hoped yesterday, I just ran out of time to speak to somebody from Atheist Ireland, and I am joined by Michael O'Brien by phone. So Michael, good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Neil.
I suppose to some extent you guys are on the outside looking in on this story, because it doesn't really concern you either way as being non-believers. But I suppose the bigger picture here is other things, not just religion, and it has to do with rape and sexual assault of people who felt that they were being belittled and parodied and laughed at. What are your thoughts anyway as an atheist?
Well, first of all, it's important to note that atheist is just a general category. Okay. Atheist Ireland is the group that I'm a member of, but atheist is just a category. It's like saying what does Irish people think of something? And like, well, it's a category based on people who don't believe in a god or gods. That's all. So it's not a unified thought process on every other issue. In regard to this, I was watching this after I've heard about the controversy, and it has nothing to do with making fun of sexual assault. In fact, quite the opposite. It's using the topical cultural reference at the time as a vehicle for the humour. But it's actually making a ridicule of the justice system because of how lenient it is towards victims or towards the aggressors of sexual assault, and that's why you can see in the piece it refers to the last 24 months of a 2-year sentence being suspended, which means
correct. Yeah, and also Harvey Weinstein's looking for a retrial in Ireland. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But that's the important point is that it's not mentioned. When Archbishop Martin mentioned it, he said, "Oh, imprisoning God," but he missed the point that he wasn't imprisoned. He got away with it. Now,
you think the pitch of the sketch then was to mock the judicial system here?
That's the whole point.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting.
Because that's what Harvey Weinstein is trying to get around. I mean, this is the whole reason for the sketch was pointing to that, and was using a cultural reference based on the time period and, of course, the nationalist feeling in Ireland. There's no point in doing something in regard to Jainism or Zoroastrianism and trying to pass it on, because nobody knows what they refer to in Ireland. The vast majority in Ireland would have no idea what Zoroastrianism means.
What does it mean?
It's just an ancient monotheistic religion that predates Christianity. It was a huge religion at the time of Persia.
But it's not really relevant to this. But it's not really relevant to this.
That's the point. It's not really relevant. So in Ireland, the most relevant group of religions would be the Abrahamic religions. As one of your comments made, it wasn't just Catholics and it wasn't just Christians.
Yeah.
But of course, in regard to this particular circumstance, where you're dealing with Mary, it would be more Islam and Christians rather than Jews, because Jews don't recognize Jesus as the Messiah.
Okay. So
it's not part of theirs. The Tanakh doesn't involve Mary,
But it still is a sketch where, like Anthony says by text, anyone who thinks rape is funny is just as sick as a rapist.
But it's not making fun of rape. It's addressing the legal system that is not properly prosecuting sexual assault. It also doesn't mention rape as such, but sexual assault. And in this circumstance, it also has the connection with some of the campaigns we're making in regard to not indoctrinating children in primary school. And the Catholic Church brings across in some of their books a young woman or a young child, it's hard to say from a small illustration, Mary, and when God approaches her to say yes to his advances. And that's
wait a second, I don't know anything about that. I know about the Holy Spirit, the faith would teach you that God is the Holy Spirit. And God, therefore, it's an aspect of the Trinity, and therefore it's God. There's no sex act, though. There's no sex act. It's There's no impregnation
in the sense of penetration.
No,
that's which is rape. But if you get a young girl, and in Jewish times, Mary would be 12 or 13 when you're dealing with.
But do we know that with any? I mean, this is getting involved in theology. But is that the age that we're saying that Mary was
at that time? That would be the time, 12 to 13 years old. You're dealing with an unwed virgin who is being connected to married, been set to be married. An unwed virgin at the time would have been around that age.
But you don't know that, nor do I.
Mary is not a historically validated figure. These are stories, so it's not like we know Mary existed in any particular sense.
Well, that's astonishing, because I supposedly went to where she died in Turkey. Are you saying that I was sold a pig in a poke there?
Possibly. I mean, there's a lot of stories can have people selling relics and making statements about it. That doesn't necessarily mean it actually happened in that way. Now, there could have been someone that was Mary, but I mean, the story itself. Is not necessarily.
I had never heard I never ever heard of Mary being 12 or 13. I mean, we can't say.
But that would be the time period for that. But that would be the standard time period. As I said, you're dealing with a character in a story, not a historical figure in the story.
The actual sketch said the 5 billion-year-old stood accused of forcing himself on a young Middle Eastern migrant and allegedly impregnating her against her will.
Yeah, I'm not sure she's a migrant at that time. She didn't migrate in the story until after she was pregnant, but she would be Middle Eastern, I suppose.
No, I'm talking about the sketch. That is rape.
Well, I mean, if you get a child pregnant, whether it's done through magic, through the Holy Spirit entering her euphemistically. I mean, Zeus got a woman pregnant through a shower of gold. So, I mean, you can be euphemistically talking about it without, any degradation of the act. The act is still getting a child pregnant. It doesn't have to describe it in detail. And you're dealing with, the Bible is written and edited over hundreds of years. Yeah. So, you've got to understand that what is written is not a first-hand account. It's a story.
Can you not see how...
It's like somebody coming along and claiming that, the Red Riding Hood issue, and they're like, well, we don't know the exact colour of the cloak. And, we're not sure what exactly happened with the grandmother. You could have, in context, different views. These are stories. Now, they're there for a reason, but a lot of the stories around Mary, are stories that people inherently absorb as if it's historical fact.
But isn't that fine if they wish to do that? Would you not have respect that, it may not be for you, but that you would defend anybody else's right to take comfort from a belief?
They can take a comfort, but they can't tell me then that I'm not allowed to question it.
Oh, absolutely! Of course, you're allowed.
Have it in humour or other elements, and these. I mean, you've got, if you find an interesting story about the origins of Ganesh, which is a sexual union that, as a child, he walked in on, and the lover was furious, and he cut the head off the child, then regretted it and stuck an elephant's head on, and these are stories. These are stories, and people get, extremely upset about it. There was an Australian ad, I think it was, or New Zealand ad, in regard to lamb a few years ago, and that caused a great deal of outrage, even though it was actually quite humorous. And
I know that there was some vegan ads regarding lambs or turkeys over the Christmas on 48 sheets bin that people found those offensive and upsetting.
And vegans get extremely passionate about their ideology, and they're fine to do so. But we can't have and it's, I suppose, a bit of a pun, a sacred cow. We can't have sacred cows where humour is blocked because someone gets offended. We can appreciate,
but it's the selectiveness of it. I mean, but it's the selectiveness of it. We all know what happened to Salman Rushdie, for instance, and Charlie Hebdo and things like that. Would they, whether it was Waterford Whispers or RTE, decide to have a pop at Muhammad? Do you think that would be...
Well, I mean, as I said, in Islam, Jesus is an honoured figure, and Mary is actually one of the few if not only, a woman mentioned in their scriptures by name in the Quran. So, I mean, it would be disrespectful to then claim that, Muslims aren't affected by this. They could be, although their story is slightly different. It is in the scriptures, in the surahs, they're referring to a miracle creating Jesus,
So, are you just saying, don't lose the plot on this? It's more of a criticism of our court system, and
It's only a criticism of the court system. The fact that it used the vehicle of religion as an example of that, because you want, as it's doing right now, you want the Streisand effect. You want people talking about it. You want people discussing it. And that's the important thing.
But there would have been people who had very, very strong faith. Let's say an older generation who were sitting down watching the national broadcaster ring in the new year, and they see a man dressed in a white robe and white hair being dragged away by guards, and it would fundamentally affect them.
Yes. And again, they seem to be suggesting that we should do it to other religions, and that would be fine.
No, that it should not happen at all. Never mind the aspect of rape or.
But again, it wasn't making fun of rape. It was addressing the fact that the Irish justice system tends to take a lenient view on it when it comes to passing sentences. That's the point. You can have a joke that incorporates a reference to a sexual issue without making fun of the people or the issue itself. It's a joke can incorporate issues that without actually making them the butt of the joke. And it's not the butt of the joke. And actually, the religion wasn't the butt of the joke. It was a vehicle for it. The butt of the joke
was God being dragged.
The fact that he got away with it. And God is a fictional character. It's not... when somebody says, we should make fun of Muhammad, I remind you, Muhammad was a figure, a human being. Jesus
was a human being. I mean, you can't deny
we're not making fun of Jesus.
Well, it would have been connected to the birth of Jesus via Mary, but Jesus did walk the planet, right?
Jesus, isn't it? Well, we don't know that. I mean, that's you're dealing with two types of Jesus. You're dealing with a potential possibility there was someone historically that might have been involved in early Christianity, that Paul may have referenced.
No, I accept that there may not. You say there may not have been a celestial Jesus, but there was a.
Yeah, but I mean that's what people believe in. They believe in the celestial Jesus. I mean, we have to be honest about this. When somebody says Jesus, they don't mean a guy who happens to be a Middle Eastern guy who may have started a cult. We're talking about the Son of God, God's only begotten Son. In that circumstance, you have to refer to: is he historical? No.
Okay, well, just hold on a second. Mick.
To be fair.
Yes.
Well, on behalf of not all atheists, but certainly Michael, he's saying that this was not at all a sketch that was ridiculing anything except the judicial system, which is lenient. What do you think?
Well, the point I wanted to make was, you just brought it up there minutes ago. No, I'm a Christian myself, and personally, talking to myself, I have no problem. It's free speech if he wants to say something about a certain religion, whatever. The problem I would have is, would he say the same thing about Islam?
Well, again, that point was addressed in the sense that God is relevant to Islam as well.
Yeah, well, let him say something about Muhammad or something. I guarantee you he would not have said anything.
No problem talking about Muhammad at all, but the point here is that it wasn't referring to it.
Like I said, it's free speech if you want to say something. And if it's up to a person if they want to take offence by that or not, that's free speech. But I do have a problem about people like you and just targeting Christianity all the time. Do you know, why don't you just...
We're not.
Well, it seems to me like...
No, they just would be a group of individuals who come together under a different belief, and some of it involves the fact that they do not believe that there is a heaven or a hell or a God or celestial beings, angels, spirits, or that Jesus went to heaven after he was crucified in Calvary.
Yeah, and that has, I have friends and family who are atheists. That's not the problem. The problem is, like I said, I have no problem if there's a sketch. Like, I saw the sketch myself, but I didn't particularly think that was the whole sketch. the newsreader was out was particularly funny. I actually turned over because I thought they were very lame jokes. But
it wasn't even funny, many people said.
No, the whole lot, the newsreader was, Jesus, this is... I looked at it and I said, just as typical RTE, not one bit funny, like, and I turned over, like, just pure stupid joke.
Okay.
The humour is selective and subjective.
But, no, it's just, that I don't think he would pick fun out of Islam or other religions. It just seemed to be Christians all the time.
No, that's a question that's a statement you should be making towards RTE, really.
Yeah, we had nothing to do with this.
Well,
we were just asked to comment on it.
But that's what I seemed to cross. And like you just made the same point there 30 seconds ago, like would he made the same point about taking the piss out of Islam? I don't think he would. I don't think RTE would. Like, it just seems to be non-stop Christianity. Look, I know Holy Joe. Like,
but it is in Islam too. Mary is an important character in Islam, and the birth of Jesus, Isa, is the Arabic name for Jesus, and the story of Jesus is in Islam.
Like, they think Jesus is a prophet. They would not the son of God.
Muhammad is barely mentioned in the Quran compared to Jesus.
But the main prophet would be Muhammad.
True, but he's only a messenger.
Yeah, but there are many who believe that a sketch where Muhammad was arrested and was depicted in some kind of garb like God was would never ever have been made or broadcast on RTE because they wouldn't have been brave enough to do it.
Agree. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could do that, but again, the majority of Irish people then wouldn't have taken on board to have a discussion about it.
Okay, let's get some other thoughts on this.
So they don't know. They don't. Most people don't read the Quran, do they? They don't understand the story. So you're trying to find a common theme that is mostly understood by the people that are going to be watching it.
The point being that all religions who believe that there was a God or is a God should be equally upset and annoyed, and not just Catholicism.
In regard to the in Ireland, when you're dealing with a topic of conversation that you hope will be relevant to people, people have to recognise the humour. If you don't recognise the character, then they're not going to get the jokes.
Look, I believe in free speech. The only problem I would have is just Christianity seems to be targeted us all the time.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Hold on a second. Let me get Catherine. Catherine, good morning.
Good morning. I'm just listening to that man there. And he did say, and it was sort of skipped over without much comment, he did say that Muhammad was a real living being, whereas he sort of said that Jesus was a mystical being. And also what I would like to sort of say to him is that Muhammad was married. Can he tell me to whom?
What, is this a quiz?
Several wives. He was married to several wives.
That's true.
So it depends on what you're referring to.
And his first wife was who?
Off the top of my head, I'd have to look it up. But she was a merchant, an extremely wealthy merchant at the time.
No, I'm asking you her name.
Off the top of my head, I don't remember.
Why is that right? But why, Catherine? Why is that right?
Was her name, and he married her when she was 6 years of age.
Okay.
No, that's incorrect.
No, it's not incorrect. You didn't even know her name.
He had many wives, and that's not the first wife.
I know. I know he had many wives, but his first wife was Aisha, and she was 6 years of age.
No, he was nearly 50 when he married Aisha.
Let's not get hooked up on age and
hold on
the
a
whole.
second. First of all, you're telling me you didn't know her name, and now you're telling me all about her. That's strange.
You asked me for her first wife. You asked me the first wife. I don't know.
Yeah.
The first wife wasn't Aisha.
Why does it matter, Catherine, whether Michael O'Brien, who's an atheist, knows the names?
He seems to know so much about Catholicism, allegedly, and he's saying this, that, and the other about it. But yet, where he was saying that Muhammad was a real living being, and that was sort of skipped over. So, in my opinion, I believe that Jesus was a real living being and was a very gentle person on this earth. Whether you all he said was all gentleness. I mean, he didn't go around marrying every woman around the place, you know?
Okay, I know that. I mean, what was hitting me over and over really wasn't so much the God aspect of this, and of course for believers that was very upsetting. It was the reference to forcing himself, anybody finding it funny to say that someone would force themselves upon a young Middle Eastern migrant, impregnate her against her will, be sentenced to 2 years in prison with the last 24 months suspended. And we're supposed to find that funny. That is ridiculing rape, sexual assault.
No.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, the butt of the joke was that the judicial system with the 24 months suspended. That's the whole point. He was committed 2 years and got away with it.
You've spoken quite a lot. Okay, you've spoken quite a lot. Now listen to me. Firstly, your the rape is abominable. But secondly, you're also sort of slagging the judicial system in Ireland, when you're saying that it's 24 months suspended. You know, I mean, just give it a rest, you know. I mean, if you have nothing to say, if you're an atheist, just keep with your atheism and let us give homage to Jesus.
No, but he isn't. But
in our society,
is business. You're an atheist. You're an atheist.
We live in the same society. You affect us. We live in the same society.
He's entitled to free. Surely, Catherine, he's entitled to freedom of speech.
I'm not saying he's not, but you know, you can get that same man. I don't know what his name is, but Michael. I mean, you can get him to say, "Come on the air." Do you think he would actually say anything good about Jesus?
Do you have anything good to say?
Something good about Jesus?
He would.
I can certainly make comments in regard to some of the things that Jesus said. I think he was spot on in his condemnation of the Pharisees. You know, the hypocrisy of the Pharisees, I think, is something that I think most people would agree on. The idea of standing up and having people give you praise for your faith and making big public displays of your faith for getting credit. Jesus called on that and said that was hypocrisy. I thought that was something that I would be in agreement with.
He did say at one stage that prayer wasn't as important, say for instance, as helping the poor or the sick, and to give what you don't need to others, rather than getting on your knees and the hypocrisy of prayer. I mean, that was pretty powerful thing.
Exactly, that was what Jesus' whole philosophy was.
Yeah, okay.
He was a gentleman.
Appreciate it. Thank you both. Thank you, Michael O'Brien, Atheist Ireland. Thank you, Mick. Thank you, Catherine. Lots of texts on this. I see them coming in already, and I will come back to them. Just a few, though, that have come across the desk here. I don't think they are mocking rape. They're more like mocking the tolerance of the church in this country, says Andrea. Also, bear in mind the Angelus. They had to remove the Angelus, removed any religious factors from it, but yet they can go on TV and mock Christianity. Yes, they did get rid of it. A lot of people took consolation from it. It used to be twice a day. It was at midday and 6 o'clock. Of course, not anymore. It's more reflection now. The New Year's Eve sketch doesn't surprise me. I'm neither religious nor anti-religion, but I am anti-hypocrisy and I am anti-cowardice. No way would such a sketch be made of any other faith. It was not an anti-Catholic per se. Lots of people see it through a Catholic prism because this is a Catholic majority country. RTE is abysmally poor at doing comedy in any case. Is pushing an anti-Catholic and liberal leftist viewpoint upon us. How do they cover the civil unrest in Dublin over the last few days? It's a poor service with lots of overpaid and bland frontliners. Anthony says, anyone who thinks rape is funny is as sick as the rapist. You're starting off the new year the same way you finished the old, giving religious fanatics airtime yet again. Back after the break.
Talk to Neil Prenderville now. 1851-04-106. Red FM.
Well, I saw the clip, usually like Waterford Whispers sketches, but this was just distasteful. And one final one for now. Never mind the religious part of it. Who finds a news story of an elderly man accused of impregnating a young immigrant woman funny? If this were an actual court case, would it be okay for the entire court to break out in laughter? So thank you for those texts to 086 8104 106, and we'll pick it up again in the morning perhaps. But I think that one is probably run its course unless there is some Dáil committee that's going to investigate it. But I don't think there's ever been anywhere like 5,000 complaints for anything that's been broadcast. I mean, you were dealing with hundreds in the past, but 5,000 was the latest. Take your head out of the sand. We all know why RTE would not do a sketch on the Muslim faith. Remember what happened to Salman Rushdie, says John. I thought the point of the sketch were to be funny. Atheism Ireland seems very profound in this regard. Bottom line, was it actually funny, says Donal. Well, I suppose that's in the eye of people who like humour, because some like a blacker type of humour, or alternative types of humour. But some areas then should not be humorous at all, I would believe, and certainly anything involved in rape or anything to do with sexual assault, that should be a no-go area. But Atheist Ireland say it was mocking our court system and not a religious mockery as such. Now,